This podcast is recorded on the traditional and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Coquitlam peoples.
British Columbia, I've seen your mountains high, seen your pretty rainbows and your blue crystal skies, watched your winding rivers as they flow around the bend. To me you're not a stranger, you'll always be a friend.
Coming to you from the West Coast, this is Politicos. Today is September 11th, 2025.
I'm Scott Lundeboom.
And I'm Ian Bushfield. On today's show, who's afraid of a foreign interference? Apparently the BC Green Party. Plus, Mark Carney launches a tariff response and picks his first major projects. Support this major project at patreon.com/politicos. Let's start in BC. A couple days ago, BC Green leadership candidate Emily Lowen was in business in Vancouver speaking to Rob Shaw about how the race is going. And the answer is awkwardly. She seems to have signed up roughly 3,700 new members. Might not be quite that many, but that's how many new membership applications there are. And nobody else seems to be concerned about how the memberships are being processed.
It's also the number she gave on the show.
The party says there are 3,700 new members. Emily Lowen says there's 3,700 new members. And it turns out the Greens have this interesting situation where they have decided foreign interference is a very big threat to their party, and they want to make sure these new members are not, Chinese agents or Russian spies trying to infiltrate the Green Party of British Columbia and influence the direction of the party with 2 seats.
Yeah, the funniest thing about this is the thought that anybody outside of BC would care at all who the leader of the third place by a technicality party in the legislature is. Let's face it, nobody in Beijing, Moscow, Tehran, any of those people,
or even Washington D.C.
Yeah, care at all on this. There's a thing about, you should probably verify, make sure the signups are legit. The Liberal Party went through the same thing, even had some of the same challenges at the first bit when it came to verifying people. There's a place for it when, the BC Liberals, I think you had to show some kind of ID when you were registered to vote there. I know the federal Conservatives and some of their past leadership races, same deal. It's pretty standard. There's something to be said for just making it one other check to prevent some of the shenanigans that happen around membership signups in a race. But the idea that you just want to throw this all on foreign interference as an all-purpose excuse is a little laughable.
I will at least also grant the party's argument that I don't even know if they've made this directly, but if you're gunning for government one day, you should have good processes today. It was their argument for why they didn't take corporate and union donations before 2017. They were like, we're going to take the high road from the start. You know what? Fair enough to them. But in this case, their verification requirements are higher than any you've described, because not only does everyone have to show ID, they all have to schedule or can go through individual Zoom verification meetings with a party official where they show them. Now, sorry, that's not all members. That's just the new member applicants. If you were a member prior to the last election, you're fine. You're a cool member. You're a old stock Green Party member, and they like you. You just need to confirm that you want to vote, and you're still a member in good standing. But if you're a new member, prove it.
Yeah, the 2-tier thing's not great. I will say, though, that maybe there is something to be said about the idea that leadership races are a little too focused on membership sales and 30 people who are new members, no real connection to the party. Ideally you're supposed to be selecting a leader based on who best represents the party, the general direction you want the party to go and all that. And that's not necessarily going to be what you're selecting for if like the primary criteria for selecting a leader is in practice how good a mass sign up operation you can get going. That said, this is a like pretty ham-fisted way of thinking of trying to address that, even if there is any of that, and that's maybe giving them credit for trying to think about that one or even address those concerns in a serious way, rather than being a little more kind of turf darting.
I feel like that membership purity vision would work if we had mass involvement in political parties in Canada. But the fact there are maybe 30,000 people who are a paid up member of a provincial political party in a province of 5 million people means if you can sign up a lot of people, it kind of proves you are more able to do the basic, like, get people excited politics that you will need to do as leader of a political party. If all our political parties had 1 million members, then yeah, you have a base to build from. But the Green Party right now needs someone who can build a base. And it seems like there is an effort to impede a change in that. Nevertheless, they have verified 1,500 as of, today. I pulled a story from a couple hours ago. They have admitted that because there have been some back and forth legal letters between Lowen's campaign and the party where she accused them of being discriminatory. And they said, well, if you read the rules very carefully, we said the CEO reserves the right to reject all your new members. They didn't say exactly like that, but it was kind of close.
What was the actual language?
I didn't pull up the actual letter. I just have it kind of like summarized in a thing. So if you have the letter, you can tell me.
The Green Party mailed out or sent an email with all of this stuff.
Sorry. I pulled up the leadership rules. The official language is leadership campaigns are strongly encouraged to promote new party membership signups as a way to increase the number of enfranchised supporters. Subclause, the chief electoral officer may verify the identity of new party memberships at their discretion. And they basically say Lowen didn't read that second part but nothing in here actually says how verification takes place. As I look at it, it's just however the CEO wants.
Yeah, and I can see the argument for having that kind of discretion clause in there. I mean,
we're both in favor of verification here.
Yeah, it needs to be done in a wise and fair manner and everything. But it kind of makes sense to have a clause that you can use if there is something hinky going on or the suspicion of it. But you really do need to make sure that everything is not just above board, but seen to be above board when it comes to that stuff. And the way this is structured, word is just on the new members. I don't think really lands on that front.
Nevertheless, the race continues on. Lowen stitched up the coveted green endorsement from David Suzuki this past week. I don't think there's a more prominent endorsement a Green could ask for, and that probably holds sway over a lot of those, long-standing members as well. So at this point, it would be a shocker for her to lose, especially if a significant number of those, new members have been verified and are likely to vote for her. The party does say they have about 10,000 voting members overall if they accept all the new applicants, which is a not bad number, again, for provincial politics. I think the BC NDP sits around 10,000 annual members. They would probably grow that if they ran a leadership race.
Usually happens.
Usually.
Yeah, and I mean, that kind of goes back to the point about members of convenience for a lot of this stuff, but you always get a spike on that. That said, there does tend to be a fair bit of attrition when it comes to new member signups, so it's going to be interesting to see how many actually signed up and from there go on to vote.
Voting starts on September 13th, so Saturday, which is also the day of the one debate that will be in Victoria, which is also an ID verification event.
Really putting it down to the wire on the debate on that one.
You do have 9 days to vote. You can vote between September 13th and 22nd. Maybe that's 10 days, including both ends. I can't do math right now. I'm too tired. So if you're a Green member, you have all of that time to try and get yourself verified to vote. And I guess in not next week's show, but the week after, we'll be able to talk about the new leader of the Green Party of British Columbia. And then
next week's show, we, I don't know, may do a debate recap if anything interesting happens in that one. And if not, I'm sure there'll be a live thread going in the patron Slack.
I'm going to be camping this weekend, so I'm going to miss it, but maybe
I'm going to be packing to move, so may have that one on in the background or may not. But I'm sure there will be a lively discussion in the Slack.
The other weird thing that came up in BC politics this week is this story from Info News or Infotel about AI news sites popping up. Specifically, there's 3 websites, Thompson Current, West Coast Current, and Okanagan Current, that kind of all just appeared in the past few months. And they seem to be posting a lot of AI-generated stories that are sometimes pretty like all LLM content, 85% good, and then like a little bit weird, and some is just wrong, including a coat of arms and a corporate logo for Kamloops was incorrect. And so Infotel's reporter Levi Landry dug into this and figured out the person behind it is Kelowna businessman and political strategist Larry Gray, who's the husband of former Conservative MP Tracy Gray. And it's unclear why he's launching this. They managed to do the standard thing where you found he responded to an email on the website, but then they also found his name like buried in the HTML code. But now he's not really said anything other than, we'll get back to you once we have a formal editor in place. But where this gets extra interesting is it's also run a couple stories that are strongly critical of John Rustad, the BC Conservative leader, and suggested like Brad West should jump up. Port Coquitlam Mayor Brad West should jump into the saddle and become leader of the BC Conservatives, and that will carry them to victory in the next election.
Isn't he a Democrat?
Not recently. So Brad West worked for Mike Farnworth as a constituency assistant. Then he became mayor. I think he might have been a councillor in Port Coquitlam for a bit, but he's been mayor for at least a couple cycles. He ran unopposed in the last one. And as mayor, he's kind of just taken this populist stint. He had a lot of fun on Twitter blaming Chinese immigrants and investors for the housing crisis, and has kind of just doubled down on the dog whistles since then. In the last election, the Conservative Party, I believe, actually said they were holding the seat in Port Coquitlam open for him if he wanted to jump and run in the provincial election. But he realized that defeating Mike Farnworth was probably not going to be easy, and he would rather be the big fish in the little pond as opposed to the little fish in the big pond. And so he stayed mayor, and I think he is open and sympathetic to where the Conservative Party is now, even given his past involvement. He is still involved in the steelworkers. He's taking, I believe he's still getting a salary from the steelworkers while also being paid as mayor. Paid pretty well for Port Coquitlam, too.
Yeah, for a city that size.
So
yeah, no, his politics are always a little weird. Can't always like easily peg it on like the provincial spectrum.
Yeah,
but definitely pretty strong populist.
To be clear, as mayor, Brad West pulls $164,000 plus a $10,000 transportation allowance.
Not a bad gig if you can get it,
right?
Especially for like,
not a big
city that size. It's not that big.
Turns out when you don't have political opposition, you can pad your salary. Well, also double dipping with the steelworkers. But yeah, I guess he isn't officially interested. But what's weird is just the existence of these sites. I don't know that anyone else has picked them up quite, but I do appreciate Info News, digging into this and highlighting the weird columns. Some of the other columns have been, standard conservative columns, critical of the government, critical of relying on a Chinese company for the BC Ferries contract. But then, they say some other stories are just like air hazards in Vancouver, civic projects in Kamloops. It's a weird thing, and something I think we need to keep an eye on as local news struggles and AI crap fills all of the internet up. Yeah,
and you can, you're running those sorts of things and, fill a lot of space with just like generic AI generated newsy stuff. And then when you want to put a thumb on the scale, push it out after you've already established the brand. So definitely something to keep an eye on.
Turning to federal politics, right after we recorded last week, Mark Carney launched his tariff response measures. This was kind of a package of announcements to support workers, support industry, and help Canada, weather the uncertain economic times we find ourselves in perpetually. The big headline here is they're pausing the zero-emission vehicle sales targets for the next couple of years, pending a 60-day review of how viable it is that Canada achieve certain targets in zero EV sales. BC is not pausing it because we've already hit the sales targets that we were aiming for, I think, for at least 2026, 2027.
Yeah, this is going to be one of those open secrets that they've been looking at for a while.
The auto industry has been livid about this, and dealerships have just been screaming bloody murder. Like, don't make us sell EVs. We want to sell cheap cars. And there you go. Beyond that, there's actually quite a bit in here. It didn't really seem to land. There's
What, you mean dropping like a 10-point plan on a Friday? Yeah, the first week
before Labor Day? Oh no, it was just
right after that.
Yeah.
Like the first week of school, it didn't grip the nation.
It was bizarre. So there's a whole reskilling package in here to train 50,000 workers. They want to have a new digital tool to facilitate job search applications, an online training platform for adults, digital and AI training.
I think they're linking some of that with the EI system too, to like make it a little more seamless and automatic.
Yeah, they're also going to extend EI benefits, so you can get a few more weeks of claims, and the 1 week waiting period that many have to just go without money will be waived, so that will actually support a lot of people really quickly. Long tenured workers will get a few more weeks of EI coverage, 20 extra weeks actually. It's quite a bit, up to a maximum of 65. Beyond that, $5 billion for a strategic response fund to help various industries. A big part of this is a Buy Canadian policy, so that the federal government has to do its best effort to go to Canadian industries first in procurement. I know you love this stuff.
I don't, but it is one of those things where, like, yeah, if everyone else is kind of playing the game badly or doing it, like, maybe we should to try and level the playing field, but, like, we should be very clear. Like, this is a suboptimal solution to just having an open process that is shared with all of our trading partners.
We'll put the link in the show notes to the full announcement in Backgrounder as well. There's money for farmers, particularly canola producers who have been hit by the Chinese tariffs. Coincidentally, there's been a lot of rumblings that Carney's going to end or at least revisit the 100% EV tariff on Chinese EVs soon, if we can hopefully get those canola tariffs walked back a bit too. Scott Moe, Saskatchewan Premier, has been mad about that because it quite impacts his base. And I think they appointed Scott Moe to go to China on behalf of Canada too, which is a real Nixon goes to China moment.
Yeah, I think if it wasn't for the canola, he'd be a little less happy about those sorts of moves.
Oh, but he's literally in China right now. So we'll see how that goes. I don't think he actually cares about Chinese EVs at all, or even Canadian EVs.
No, I think he wants one of the big industries in his province not get hit as hard on that. And that makes sense, but there's a bigger conversation to be had about like the importance of a vehicle manufacturing sector and how exposed it should be to a geopolitical rival who's doing their best to basically dump a huge amount of product onto the market. But I don't think Scott Moe is particularly spending a lot of sleepless nights thinking about that one.
When you talked about geopolitical rival with our country's not best economic interests at heart, I thought you were talking about America for a second.
Well, that was the thing. It's like, well,
we don't have many friends these days.
Yeah, like we put these in place back when the Biden administration was in place and making a pretty concerted strategic set of actions around competition with China. And like it actually like made some sense on that front. Yeah, it's not like the sort of thing that, you know, a bunch of economists on a whiteboard would love, but when you thought about the geopolitical strategy of it, you know, there's something to be said that vehicle manufacturing is a strategically important industry. You know, big part of the reason we're speaking English and not German right now is because the Allies just produced so many more tanks and fighting vehicles back in World War II that victory ultimately was inevitable on that one. So you could end up in a pretty bad situation where you just like let that industry be outcompeted by a geopolitical rival and end up in a really bad position if things ever do escalate to a more kinetic competition. But the actual strategy kind of falls apart when the linchpin of it decides to go off in a whole bunch of directions and starts undercutting their allies on that one. So
yeah,
I don't love the idea of pulling back for those strategic reasons, but like it's not like there's a good strategy in place because the center point of it decided just to tear it up in a fit of whatever.
The Hyundai EV I bought this summer was supposed to come from Hyundai's brand new state of Georgia factory where, fun fact, a bunch of Korean engineers were just put in immigration detention by the Trump administration and then later released because why not? But my car didn't. It came from Korea because tariffs made it too difficult to bring that car north as opposed to across the Pacific Ocean. Things are really working well. The North American auto industry is struggling. And I don't mean like struggling to sell. It's like they're struggling to actually make the cars people want to buy. Like, I'll credit Ford that I think the Lightning is selling pretty well as an EV truck, and they were the first to get, you know, an EV truck that people want. But like the stuff that is selling in China that I can, when I visited Australia, is on the roads there. It's on the roads in Europe, and Europe has cars that are cheaper, are electric, and meet the demands people want. North American automakers just can't or won't make affordable, popular EVs. And we've just told them they don't have to because they're having too much trouble with it. So somewhere we need to kick their pants in some way, and we refuse to, I find. Whether that's foreign competition or whether that's demand targets or something. Maybe launching a public sector builder of Canadian cars to just compete with them. Something. But we're not doing any of that.
So we can make a Canadian Lada?
Why not? If it works, and it...
I mean, that car famously didn't.
Well,
but
we can make one that is fine, but as long as it creates some competition to actually bring prices down and changes the market a bit. Because it's not. But getting back to...
I'm not sure if this one's one where there's competition so much. There's going to be a bit of it for sure, but like, it's not like there aren't a bunch of auto brands out there all competing with each other. If they've all landed on roughly the same price point, it's probably because the fundamentals of manufacturing and the market are dictating that one.
Slash, there aren't that many brands because they've consolidated and are kind of a cartel situation where they have industry capture or regulatory captured. And
well, you have like a few of them, but like you still have it's what, like 6-7 major automakers out there?
Fewer than there were.
Yeah, but like
case,
enough to generate real competition in the market.
on this whole package, like I said off the top, it's bizarre how it kind of just dissipated from the news. I think you're right that dropping it on a Friday was a bizarre decision. I guess they'll probably come back to it again and again as Parliament returns and they table their budget and speak to all of this money that now needs to be approved. Spending is weird in this country, but at least we don't have government shutdowns. So, I don't know. What did they miss with this? We'll get into the major projects in a second. Like, is it enough?
I'm not sure if there is going to be anything that is going to be enough. If TUSMA/USMCA, it's really annoying how like each country has their own acronym on that one. If that gets blown up, like I don't think there's a set of government supports that are going to actually be able to offset that one.
I guess what's missing...
Resource industry doesn't jump out as something that was included in here, but
I guess the thing...
There's going to be a bunch of stuff in the other thing we're talking about.
Yeah, I guess the other thing that's missing is the like trade deals with new partners, and those are going to be their own individual announcements, and some of those trade deals already exist, but like...
Yeah, you can't... This was also what came out of the cabinet... are we calling it retreats now? They changed up the language. I can't remember which one's the current version, but this was put out on the last day of that, which maybe the strategic cylinders aren't all firing on that one, considering what a nothing of an announcement it ended up being politically. But yeah, you're not getting trade deals out of a cabinet retreat.
Well, then let's get into the major projects announcement from this afternoon. It was kind of leaked through CBC over the last couple of days. First, it was announced there's no oil pipelines included in the initial announcement, and then we got a teaser of the list, which happened to be right. 5 projects right off the bat. LNG Canada Phase 2 here in BC, the Darlington new nuclear project in Ontario to build small modular reactors, the Contrecoeur Terminal Container Project in Quebec, the Milvena Bay Foreign Copper Mine in Saskatchewan, and the Red Chris Copper Mine expansion here in BC. So, big win for BC getting 2 projects. Too bad for Atlantic Canada. Off the stop.
Yeah, for the first batch. There's a bunch more that get listed a little further down on there, but yeah, solid outing for BC in this one. I mean, the LNG Phase 2, I think it's fairly far along.
I think all of these are.
This one.
I think that's why they hit the top, is it's like, we're going to announce things that are basically like ready to go and either just need a little more money or like we're waiting for the corporation to say, yep, we're going. And now the federal government has said, these are going. So
yeah, I think some of these are still in regulatory stuff. I think the Darlington one, I don't think they've necessarily gotten all the permits and everything ready for that. But the Ontario government's been talking for a while about that one, so there has been stuff in the works on that.
The announcement was weird as well because besides saying they've identified these with the idea of approving them within 2 years, it's not clear how much money is going to them or what specifically they're doing for any of them. It's kind of just these are the priorities, but what does each of them need?
Yeah, well, other than Darlington, I don't think any of these are government owned. Darlington will be a Crown corporation in Ontario, but everything else I'm pretty sure is private sector.
Port of Montreal might be publicly owned? I don't know for sure. That's the container terminal. In any case, as you mentioned, there are a few other projects that are in the almost there to be announced stage. First is the critical minerals strategy, which is a very broad category that includes the Ring of Fire and anything else they want to throw into that pot. So, good start. The Wind West Atlantic Energy Project is in there. I actually thought that might have gone up because this is it. I mean, I'm not in Nova Scotia, so I don't know how far along that is, but it seemed like a pretty bold and ambitious project to build a giant offshore wind farm to support Eastern Canada electric energy. Sounds cool. Easy win. Alberta would get its first project on the list, Pathways Plus carbon capture, utilization and storage. Good for them. The Arctic Economic Security Corridor is also on this list, which is another vague one of just put a bunch of money into the north.
Yeah, so that one's an all-weather, dual-use land port-to-port-to-port project, but, like, what exactly does that entail? Are we getting new deep-water Arctic ports? The Port of Churchill's, like, mentioned the next one down. That's the Arctic Ocean one that's, like, easiest to spin up, but, you know,
easiest to spin up.
What a year-round...
I mean, it's the most understandable because you know what you have to do, but, like, Churchill is a difficult place to build to.
Yes, but anything in the Arctic is going to be more difficult than northern Manitoba. There's at least an existing rail line that, you know, in need of repair, but you can bring that one up to a good state of repair. You know, you can put some icebreakers there to help extend the season. You know, it's a lot easier than, you know, punching a road up to, like, Tuttiutuk and building a deep water port there.
And the final project on the early stage is the Alto high-speed rail, the high-speed rail from Toronto to Quebec City. This one, they say they want to have shovels in the ground within 4 years. So at least they have a target there.
I mean, great if they can pull that off. We'll have to see if they actually can.
Yeah.
On that, because it's a pretty significant increase in the timeline, which, you know, great. We should be moving quickly on these, but a lot of work's going to have to happen beyond just sticking it on a to-be-approved list. Actually do, like, the route planning, the engineering on all of that, the bidding process, etc.
Yeah. All of these require a lot of work. I guess the other kind of part of it too.
Yeah, that's true. I guess the other thing I'm going to be looking for is whether or not this is basically going to be it when it comes to retooling the regulatory infrastructure and getting stuff going, or if they're, you know, getting these high priority ones done, are moving and then actually going to put some effort into just, you know, fixing the underlying regulations that aren't really working, that, like, this whole set of projects and the underlying legislation behind it is kind of an admission that the structures that existed weren't really meeting the country's needs and interests, and here they've just taken, you know, a few ones and created a new, you know, special process for the politically favored ones, but are they actually going to do the hard work of going in and actually retooling things and taking the barriers that, you know, were stopping or slowing down the Atlantic wind energy, for example, from moving as quickly as it should? And I haven't seen a lot of signs on that from the government, but, like, I'm hoping that's going to be the case, because this, like, just pick stuff and do a special process for it is not a great way to run a country. Like, you want to be a situation where, you know, if a proponent for a project, you know, pulls together the investors and, you know, puts a project together that's in the national interest, it can just go through the process without also having to convince a bunch of politicians to give it extra special status.
Hey, now, this country was built on picking preferred projects and going all in on them. Happened to be a lot of corruption at the same time, but some say those are totally not related at all.
Yeah, maybe we should kind of learn from that.
We did get a railway built across the country. What I'm noticing about the projects here, right, is it was telegraphed pretty well in advance, but nothing in here says to me, rethinking the Canadian economy in any way. It's kind of just doubling down on resource extraction, whether it be mines or LNG. I think
well, I mean, you have a major wind energy one. You have high-speed
yeah, those are the
here.
standouts, I think.
Churchill.
That's an export, right?
It's like kind of transportation.
It goes with
like international trade.
It goes with the rip it and ship it mentality that's kind of runs through this. There's no push for like a new manufacturing core. I don't think there was any pitches for that were on there, but it kind of lacks a bigger vision. I'm curious to see what the Arctic Economic Security Corridor looks like. That could have the biggest like change besides probably the high-speed rail. But like LNG Canada Phase 2 and Red Chris mine expansion is more jobs for sure, but it doesn't really change British Columbia in any way, for better or worse. So I guess I'm curious where the mid to longer term of the project office goes. And like you say, in terms of improving regulatory systems, like between this and the last announcement we talked about, is kind of, I did see the last one framed as kind of like, here's our industrial strategy. And I'm like, there's nothing in there that says industrial strategy. There's a bunch of money that's a slush fund for companies that are struggling, which can be valuable, and there's this buy Canadian emphasis, but where is we are going to build up these industries that aren't just resource extraction? Where's our effort in that? And it's not there.
Yeah, and that like slush fund, keep the lights on kind of thing is only valuable as like a short-term bridge. If it becomes like a longer-term thing, you can actually get into some pretty economically unhealthy situations where like unprofitable companies are kind of just kept alive by a government that doesn't want the job loss, but it is not very economically productive and ends up stagnating the whole economy. You don't want to end up...
Well, and you talked about like strategic car manufacturing as a strategic industry. Like, what are the strategic industries that we should be investing in?
Yeah, but you don't want to end up like Japan or in some cases China, where unprofitable companies are just kind of kept alive, and the may help in the short term, but in the long term, the economy becomes less dynamic and less able to sustain itself outside of that. And we want to grow a healthy and dynamic economy, and those things, if those programs, if they aren't just short term bridges during the crisis, could have some long-term problems associated with that. Also, interestingly, nothing on tech in any of this. Yeah, if you want to think about like new economy stuff, technology is a very important high-growth sector, and there's nothing on this. There isn't even like a slightly dubious, we're trying to invest in a bunch of like AI data centers or anything on here. There's like
Evan Solomon failing at his job already.
Yeah, like you don't even get something like that. Like data center construction is right now like a huge thing. It's part of what's keeping the U.S. economy afloat, and like during its
the
troubles.
Wind West, the nuclear, the critical mineral strategy can all tie to that, because you need power and critical minerals to power computers and make computers.
Yeah, and a lot of like the early theoretical work into like the large language models and generative AI stuff was done in Canada. Like the fact that we aren't generating significant leading companies in this or a bunch of other tech fields, should be a concern. And you want to get the country ready for the future, like figure out how to actually make it worthwhile to put your startup in Canada rather than decamp to Silicon Valley as soon as you graduate from Waterloo.
Even the simplest first step to that would be, hey, you know how universities are struggling right now because of all of the cuts to foreign students that they can't rely on, or international students? How about just like make our universities financially solvent so they can just do the thinking that sometimes leads to that success. It's costly to invest in research, but it usually pays off. And just, that's not exactly a major project, but you could tie it together. We're going to build a new facility and staff it at University of Montreal or whatever.
I mean, just so it doesn't become the super clusters all over again. But, I mean, the other thing is, like, this is an opportunity right now to scoop up a lot of talent from top universities south of the border. Like, you know, not a bad time to set up a bunch of new professorships across the various universities.
So, the list didn't include any pipelines. So one would think Premier Danielle Smith of Alberta would be livid and blowing her top over this. But quite impressively, the headlines today were, she feels like she's being heard by Mark Carney and has a good relationship. And it was a bizarre set of very happy sound bites from her towards Ottawa, which hasn't been heard from the province of Alberta in my lifetime. Like, it's the province that lives, aside from Quebec, that lives on fighting Ottawa. And here, they didn't get oil pipelines and then come out going, no, this is great. We love the promise of maybe getting carbon capture eventually.
Yeah, I mean, things were a little more chill in, like, the 2015 to 2019 period. But,
No, Notley did have her fights, though.
She had her fights, but, like, you know, when there wasn't something that was, like, in the news on that, it was a little more congenial.
I think what's come out is kind of two angles. Number one, Smith is probably pretty happy about the shift on EV mandates. It's also come out that Canada is considering dropping its planned oil emissions cap that would have come in a couple of years. This is something that the regulations were announced, I think, early this year or late last year, and industry went, that's absurd. We can't promise to cut emissions ever. We need to keep growing the oil industry forever. And Alberta was very mad about that. And I think the other reality is no one wants a pipeline. Like, Danielle Smith wants a pipeline, but like no one who has the money to build one is eager to, even with the promise of simplified regulatory systems, because simply put, costs a lot and the demand is flattening to falling on oil exports. So economically, why would you build another pipeline right now? And she probably knows that.
Yeah, probably. It's also come out that part of it is that she's apparently received assurances that, you know, if a proponent's didn't come forward on it, it'll be given appropriate consideration and will likely be slotted into the list we were just talking about. So it might be well, there's not one on the table right now.
But if the Alberta government puts $10 billion behind a pipeline, you could have a goddamn pipeline.
I mean, I would not rule that out.
Neither would I.
That feels like something I could see them doing.
The problem is I think they're already sitting on a pretty big deficit. And so they're probably iffy about major capital expenses. But we'll see. We'll see. So, yeah. We'll keep an eye on the Major Projects Office. We'll see how these projects progress. Beyond that, Parliament returns on Monday, and there's a lot on the docket. There's the major border security bill that was tabled right before the holidays that has to go through. That's received a lot of criticism from civil liberties groups. I forget what else is on the agenda, but there's more planned.
Yeah, after you'll need like a fall economic statement, or maybe we didn't. I don't think we passed the.
We did not have a
budget this year. Yeah, because the election interrupted that whole thing, and there's proroguement before that. So, you know, you'll need a budget, especially because there's a lot of new or changed spending on that.
There's the citizenship changes, which probably won't be that controversial. This is the Lost Canadians thing. There's the Making Life More Affordable for Canadians Act. That was, I think, the tax cut. One of the tax cuts. There was that weird cybersecurity telecom bill that I remember looking at that was like a rehash of a typo from a previous session. And then a bunch of private members' bills, as there always are.
Yeah, those private members' bills probably aren't going to go anywhere. There's also been a few things the government's hinted at that'll be coming, but no legislation's been introduced. Bail reform's the one that gets talked about the most, I think. But we'll probably see a few other
Scott,
ones.
you say private members' bills don't go anywhere, but Yves-Francois Blanchet's bill C-202 passed and has received...
That's the supply management one. Of course, it's like a dumb one that manages to make it through that.
Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on all of that. Bail reform, as you mentioned. The Conservatives want to introduce their private members' bill version of it. The Liberals have also said they're going to have a bill coming forward, but won't say what's in it. Yeah, and still technically a minority parliament, although the chances of it falling when the NDP are only kicking off a leadership race, the Conservatives are still kind of not doing well in the polls. Like, they're not out of the idea that they could challenge for government, but they are.
They're like 38 or so, I think, right now, which, in any other time would be cause for celebration, but the Liberals were ahead on that.
Yeah, and the NDP are sitting at like 5 still, so it's...
And will likely stay that way for a while.
Yeah, it's hard to commit to vote for a party without a leader. Permanent leader, at least. So, yeah, I'm excited. Politics is starting up again. And then we'll have the BC legislature return in a few weeks after that.
That's October, isn't it?
A few weeks, Scott. Maybe a month. And that has been Politicoast. Find links to everything we talked about at politicoast.ca. Support the show and get access to our exclusive Slack channel at patreon.com/politicoast. Our intro music is Beautiful British Columbia by Serge Plotnikov. Politicoast is a production of Leg and Boot Media. Audio editing provided by Jesse Woodward at listener-supported CHLY 101.7 FM in Nanaimo. Learn more at chly.ca.